Hello, Matthew. How are you?
Good, good. How about you?
Good, thank you.
Thank
Please
you for
start by
having
introducing
me.
yourself. No, thank you for being on the show.
Yeah, no problem.
Please start by introducing yourself.
Yeah, so my name is Mathew Mozaffari. I am the CEO and founder of Speer Technologies. I, in a nutshell, I studied computer science at Ryerson University, ended up buying courses online and taught myself quite a few different technologies and frameworks, which are now very popular. These include technologies like Swift and React Native. I picked these up in 2015, and since then I've been leveraging these tools to build out technologies, and that's what really started the inception of Spear.
Mm. Why did you choose the entrepreneur route? Why didn't you, get a 9 to 5 job?
So I've had a 9 to 5 job, and I'm sure a lot of people have. I I actually always enjoyed the 9 to 5 roles, especially the ones that I was involved with, because as a developer, you got to be very creative, you got to think outside the box, you really got to apply yourself. But with Spear or just building your own organization, you get to expose yourself to a lot of nuances and a lot of aspects of development, general development, not software, but just general development, which you wouldn't necessarily get the opportunity to expose yourself to if you worked a traditional 9 to 5 role. And for myself, I've always been very curious about building as much as I can, and build my creativity for building goes beyond development. It's creating. When I'm cooking, I enjoy cooking. I enjoy drawing. I enjoy creating in all aspects of my life. And creating a business was that next step to understanding how much further I can create value for people.
How long have you had your business for?
Technically, I could say 5 years, but then I took it very seriously since late 2018. But initially, it was just one product. That's all it was.
Hmm. And what challenges did you face? Like, did you face challenges when you were setting up your business, incorporating it, finding employees,
Right. Yeah. I actually didn't
funding,
incorporate. Oh, I'm sorry.
funding as well? Did you have challenges finding funding? Did you need
Right.
funding?
Right. Yeah. So I actually ended up privately funding it. I worked a 9 to 5 role, and I had the opportunity to work with some very talented individuals. And I was lucky enough to save as much as I could. And I was able to privately fund the organization from the start. After 6 months of being able to privately fund it, I was able to gain interest from other individuals that were open to collaborating with me and privately assist with funding by providing our services. So I was actually able to, and we still are privately funded through the revenue that the company is generating. So I think that's a big advantage that we got to have. It's that all control was kept internally within all the stakeholders of the company. So this means that we not only maintain creative control, but we get to do what we want, however we like to do it, as long as it benefits our organization, because the only stakeholders and the only people we report to are the people internally.
Mm. And what challenges did you face? So funding was not an issue, but did you face issues?
Oh, definitely. I To this day, I'm still trying to figure out how to get everything coordinated and running well and successfully. Right now, or the initial challenges were generating traffic and generating a consumer base. I think that's the biggest problem that I faced. And I still face it to this day. It's how can we continue to expand and gain traction and continue to gain eyes on our platforms so people are willing to pay money for the exchange of what we provide and what we bring value to.
Why did you decide to establish a company versus continuing to, provide the same value in in your regular job? Like you mentioned that you did not incorporate your business. Why have a business if it's not incorporated?
That's a that's a great point. So I incorporated. I don't know if I mentioned this, but I didn't incorporate for the first year of the business, but
I
now we are, of
see.
course, incorporated.
Of course.
But
Okay.
initially I didn't incorporate because I was under the impression that there would be a lot of legal jargon, a lot of finances, a lot of overhead that I'd have to accommodate for, not just financially, but just general overhead that I didn't want to deal with initially, because I didn't even know if what I was going to tackle would have value for our society. So in layman's terms, I didn't know if what I was working on was useful at all. And I didn't want to put down that much. I didn't want to deal with any overhead. I didn't want to coordinate. I just wanted to build and release and just get that first milestone out of the way before committing.
So tell us more about what you build.
Yeah. So initially, this platform was just a virtual waiting room called Speer. Speer stands for Speedy Recovery. The application ended up gaining some traction, and clinics started implementing the application into their platforms, and that's where it started to take off. Initially, it was just a mobile application that that patients and doctors, I guess no, patients and clinical staff could use to coordinate with each other. But it started to gain more traction when people started expressing interest in tying in the virtual waiting room into their platforms. So we ended up doing a subtle pivot because a lot of companies were approaching me to take my skill set and the skill set that the team had and try tying in and applying our platform into their platforms. So as you can tell, it started to pivot into more of a consulting model where I was coordinating with companies and going into their organizations, working for 3 to 6 months on their platforms and trying to tie in an application that was barely providing value at the time, at least. And once we started to gain more exposure to the companies that we were working with, understanding how they operate, how these health tech companies deal with barriers to entry within the market, because it's such a there's so much red tape within the space, we started adapting and pivoting and introducing new platforms. And after those experiences, we started being able to white label our products, license it out to other companies. And that's when we started to explore ADA approvals and FDA approvals and patenting work. And that's what really opened our eyes up to how much potential Speer had, because we went from just being a platform which served a very small number of clinics to a platform which provided these innovative and R&D related services to a much broader scope of individuals, which is why now we're working with international companies. Most of our customers are actually outside of the North American space, and it's a really cool experience. And that just goes to show, when you pivot and think outside the box and try to adapt, you can actually expose yourself to quite a lot of opportunity.
How different is your business model? Is your business model right now to the business plan that you created when you were starting your business?
Honestly, not at all. To this day, I will say this to everyone. There is a certain degree of me winging everything day to day. There's like, not all of it, of course, but to a certain degree, you are winging it. And if you're not, then you must be very stressed out if you're not. I stress myself out planning quite a bit, and I have been planning a lot, but over the last 6 months, I would say 6 to 8 months, I've definitely learned that you can't plan everything. And it has improved my mental health, but it has also allowed me to think outside the box, because in the moment, what you've planned for is probably not going to happen. And the better you can adapt to the conditions that you're experiencing in the present day, the smarter you'll be able to react to situations. And it's actually benefited our organization since then.
What marketing strategies did you use to market your business?
So right now we have social media, like we have a team that's focused on social media. So they post Instagram, they handle Instagram, LinkedIn, Facebook, and they're basically promoting our platform. A lot of the work we do, because there's so much red tape behind it, and again, there's a lot of legal regulation behind what we work on, we actually can't market it too much because there's a lot of compliances, non-disclosure agreements, which prevent us from showcasing a lot of the potential of the work, which is a good and a bad thing, because what it means is that we can't target everyone, but the specific niche of individuals that we do target are always interested in what we're doing. And it's usually through word of mouth and just through cold outreach.
Have you considered, creating a webinar where you would showcase some of the functionality of your application, and then you would take it from there to interested buyers?
I guess a webinar is not something I've explored or thought about. I know individuals that have run webinars that have been incredibly successful. Setting that up is something I'm sure we could get done, but the first steps are research. It's something I'd have to learn about first, but it's definitely an interesting perspective.
And in regards to, other channels like trade commissioners, for example, if you start reaching out to trade commissioners in our embassies, all over the world, they might be able to assist you in identifying, key buyers or key partners in specific regions?
Right. So trade commissioners is something we have explored to a certain degree, not completely, no, but what I will say is that a lot of the companies outside of North America that we have exposed ourselves to are through cold outreach to organizations in different countries that act as incubators within their countries to help technology and the STEM industry prosper within their space. So in short, it isn't something we fully delved into yet, but it is something that we have started exploring.
Based on your experience so far, what are the qualities of a good entrepreneur?
I think the only quality you need is open-mindedness. It's something that I mention a lot actually. And I think by being open-minded, you're able to take in a lot of perspectives, which means you're not only learning because you're not always speaking, but it also means that you get to look at something as holistically as possible. So it means you're looking at something and not taking it to an extreme perspective. You are looking at something, observing the pros and cons, observing the different perspectives that could have caused the situation to be the way it is. And I think it keeps you very intelligent and sharp because you're able to recognize that there will be pros and cons to any situation. Just to build off of that, the more open-minded you are in a space like the STEM industry, the easier it is for you to adapt. And I learned this the hard way. And that's because if you're open-minded, you're not sticking to one technology stack. You're open to exploring and investing into new technologies and taking that risk because you're open-minded. And if you remain open-minded, your work will never deprecate, or there will never be a framework that kills your platform because you're thinking outside the box. You're investing and thinking towards the future, and that open-mindedness keeps people comfortable and it allows the team to operate well.
And how did the pandemic affect your business? Did it affect it in a positive way or a negative way?
I would definitely say it unfortunately benefits it. Of course, there are a lot of people that have been impacted by COVID, and it's a pandemic. Like, it's horrible. There's no other way you can package that. It's just horrible. But due to the pandemic, you naturally need to digitize your space. You naturally need to become more digital, and to a certain degree, we are keeping people safe by digitizing as much as we can. But at the same time, keeping people safe through our business model benefits us. So in short, it has benefited us because you are naturally trying to digitize your ecosystem and your environment.
My last question to you, Matthew. What advice would you give someone who is, interested in becoming an entrepreneur?
That's a good question. I would say that off the top of my head, the first thing I thought of was that it's stressful. So I don't know if I don't want to say that. What I will say is that you will mess up, and there are going to be horrible days, and there will be very good days. You'll have highs and lows, but I equate it to life in itself, because life is nothing without the lows, because you'll never feel those highest of highs. And it's vice versa. Like, you'll never feel those highest of highs without your lows. So if you are going into entrepreneurship, what I will say is that I don't want to say, this is the first sentence that came to my head. I don't think it's right to say this, but entrepreneurship isn't the easiest way out. The easier and more comfortable route is to get a standard traditional job, which I think works amazing. I think that's amazing, and I think it's great for stability. But something to note is that that's the only part of your life that you can really keep stable. Everything in your life will never go to plan, and if you recognize that, you will be able to take the risks to be an entrepreneur. And advice that I would give is to realize that you can't plan everything, and that anything that will go wrong, anything that can go wrong will go wrong. So you need to take it day by day, and just maintain an open-minded perspective so you can live in the moment. I feel like it's all very cliche, but it is very true. Something's cliche because people say it all the time, and people say it all the time because it's true.
You reminded me of an analogy or saying that, life is like a heart monitor. If it goes up and down, it means you're alive. But if it's straight, it means you're dead. You don't want a life that is always the same, always expected. You want some highs, you want some lows. You want to feel
Yeah,
like you're alive. You have to interact with it.
exactly. I would say if you want to make the most of your life in general, you should do what you love. And if you find that traditional, not, I don't like using the word traditional, if you find that opportunity that allows you to pursue your passions, then that's it. Like that's what you've done. I feel like entrepreneurs go into entrepreneurship because their passions just aren't available in the market. But if you find that whether it's through a traditional 9 to 5 or you find that through your own organization, then keep pursuing it because it makes up such a big part of your life that you're just going to blink and your life is going to be gone and you've invested the majority of your life to a job that you potentially didn't enjoy. So I think it's much more serious than people make it, like picking a career and picking a path that you want to take. And I think you need to make sure that path is worth your time because that's going to be a large part of your life.
Mathew, you have been excellent guest on the show. Thank you very much for your time, and we'll see you soon. Thank you.
Thank you so much for taking the time. I really appreciate it.
Thank you, Mathew.